not only don't make sense, but resulted in other people being affected in a negative way. And I don't know that I have a better answer than what I tried to answer in the film, which is ultimately, though Scientology says that it's not a religion of faith, that it's a religion of science, and that it is a way of learning how to understand yourself, truthfully, it requires an enormous amount of faith. And you are indoctrinated from a very early stage when you come into Scientology that what is said in Scientology and by L. Ron Hubbard is absolutely true and should never be questioned or never be challenged. And the mindset that is the mindset of Scientology is very much us against the world. It is, we have something that everybody in the world needs. We have something that is the answers to mankind. All those people out there don't have it. We have to make sure we get it to them, and there is nothing more important than that. And it justifies all sorts of crazy behavior and crazy thinking that you get into. And you know, I look back at that film, and every time I see it, I go, "Oh my God, that really is me. That is what I was doing. That is what I looked like. Those are the things that I said." And yes, unfortunately, they are. I don't regret my life. You know, I grew up in Scientology from the age of 6. I left when I was 53. And I can't live a life of regret. All I can do now is look back and figure out what lessons did I learn from that and try and prevent the same abuses or things that I feel are wrong within Scientology. Oh, thank you. This works? Yeah. Oh. The same things that happen so that they don't repeat with other people. And that's why I spend time talking to the media. That's why I have a blog. That's why I do the things that I do to try and make what I know to be the real truth of Scientology widely known. And not everything about it is bad. There are a lot of very good people that are involved in Scientology. And like, I stand here next to Sarah, and I know Sarah pretty well, and you've seen the terrible position that she was put in. She is just as good a person now as she was when she was in Scientology. She sees the world a little differently, but she wasn't a bad, evil person when she was in Scientology, and neither are all the other friends that I have that are here that used to be in the church. They're all decent people. The people that are walking around in Clearwater, they're decent people. They're very, very misguided, and there is a big separation between the people at the bottom and the people at the top. Miscavige and those who are very close around him have a very, very different understanding of what's really going on in Scientology than the vast majority of people who are participating in Scientology.
Sarah, to me, one of the most gut-wrenching parts of the film was you're talking about the disconnect with your daughter and your granddaughter. Here's an organization you had given your life to. Prior to that, did you have any indication that something like this could be going on, that families could be torn apart like that, or were you just blinded by everything that you had been told?
Well, I got in 1976, and I got in like Spanky and others were saying, we're going to change the world, you know. It was a beautiful thing. We actually had a good time, and then things started to change. And I didn't see a lot of disconnection. It didn't used to exist like it does now in the 70s and early 80s, and you just never ran into it. It wasn't pushed. It became worse, you know, once Miscavige got into power, and he became more afraid that people would come in and talk to them, talk to the people inside and let the secrets out. So, but when it really hit home to me is when, after the Truth Rundown and my son, they started putting pressure on my son because he had a friend who had connected to Mike, and they wanted my son to disconnect. And so that's when it started to come home, and I was trying, at the time, I was a total Scientologist, I was trying to get my son, come on, just let him go, you just can't, you've got to think of your eternity, And then, after a while, though, the methods they used and what they were doing and the threats they were making, in fact, actually what happened is I actually got my son to disconnect from all his friends that were declared. He was living in Jacksonville. He completely got rid of his Facebook page. He was good. My husband wasn't on the internet. I was being good, and they actually did a justice action on us called a committee of evidence because they still wanted me, even though my son wasn't doing anything and had disconnected, they wanted me to disconnect from my son because he was declared, even though my son was causing no trouble. And it was at that point I went, there's something wrong. There's something very wrong. And that's when I really started then, after they did that committee of evidence, which is like a military tribunal, they found me guilty. And my only crime was being connected to my son, and that was it. That was my only crime. And so at that point I started to look, but I was very quiet. I thought, oh, well, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to speak out. I'm just going to help my daughter, be with my granddaughter. I used to babysit every day so my daughter could do the bridge and get auditing. And finally they couldn't stand it anymore because I still wasn't, even though they said you can't have any more auditing, you can't do any more training, and I went, fine. That's when I had started to realize this was not right. But I didn't want to lose my family. I didn't want to lose my daughter. And so they finally just declared my husband and I. And at that point, that's when you saw in the film, my daughter said, I love you very much. And there was no one closer than my daughter and I. I mean, we had such a close, loving relationship. And my granddaughter, she's autistic, and she was 8 years old when this happened. And she only had a handful of people that she trusted and she felt comfortable with. And I was one of them. So it just broke my heart that I lost her. When it was I just got super depressed and, but again, yes, to answer your question, I didn't know until it started to happen to me. And now it's so widespread. It happens to everybody's been touched, but people are afraid. They're afraid of losing their family. They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of their eternity, that they're going to lose their eternity. But what I told them, because that's what they said to me in my tribunal justice committee of evidence.
Sounds like a science fiction
Yeah,
movie.
it really was. You're going to lose your eternity. I said, there's something more important, and that's your integrity. And I'm doing what's right. I'm not trying to be right. I'm not trying to make anybody wrong. I'm trying to do what's right. And this is wrong to have a mother do a Sophie's Choice and choose between her children. And I'm not going to choose. And I'm going to do what's right. And I'm going to keep my integrity. Because if you lose your integrity, you've already lost your eternity.
I want to talk.
We'll get to questions. Let's a couple more minutes, then we'll get to some questions. Mike, I'm doing a story with Mike and about the church and all. When we talked today, we talked about the tax-exempt status. That seems to be the vehicle that allows the church to move on. In your mind, that tax-exempt status has got to go, right? Let's talk a little bit about that.
In my mind, absolutely. I was telling you, Mike, that when the exempt status was gotten in 1993, there was a lot of work done with lawyers, etc., to make the church comply with what the IRS regulations are governing tax-exempt religious organizations. And I would say that at that time, the church was probably pretty compliant. There was a lot of other factors that went into it that you saw in the film, the lawsuits, the exposés, the constant sort of campaign against the IRS. But nevertheless, the church, its structure, the way the money was used, et cetera, and the volume of money was within the parameters of what is acceptable for the IRS. These days, this is a scam that is masquerading as an exempt organization. And the reason I say that is because, as it said in the film, a religious exempt organization is exempt on the basis that you don't want to tax something that's for the good of society. That a religious entity in theory, is beneficial to the entire society, not even just its parishioners, that by ministering to the poor and the sick and the needy and providing assistance to those in need, religious entities benefit society, so therefore they are exempt from taxation. However, they may not accumulate massive amounts of money because they're not supposed to be making money. They're supposed to be collecting money from people in order to spend it for the public good. The way Scientology has managed to scam this and scam the IRS now is that one of the things that is considered to be an exempt purpose by the IRS is the buildings that a church needs to deliver services to its parishioners. And that is considered to be a valid exempt purpose, and churches do fundraising drives to build churches or expand their churches all the time. The difference in Scientology is they do fundraising drives and collect billions of dollars, and they buy buildings and they're completely empty. They're not paying taxes on the income, and they then don't pay taxes on the buildings. They have an investment scheme that would make a lot of, Donald Trump would be envious of the real estate empire that Scientology has managed to build on the backs of the United States taxpayers. Because while you may not, and people here may not give money to the Church of Scientology, believe me, your tax dollars are supporting the activities of the Church of Scientology, because they are using all the same facilities that you're using. They certainly use the court system, they drive on the roads, they use the airports, all of the things that your taxes, the health system, they scam that like crazy. All of those things are being used, and you are subsidizing them, and they're using them for free. And they're making money, and they are investing in real estate and pretending to the IRS that that real estate is needed for providing services to their parishioners. But all this real estate is empty. There's nobody in it. They don't need it. They just need to spend money so they don't have so much liquid cash.
Let me have one final question for each of you, and then I want to ask questions. The other thing that really astounded me when I first saw the documentary was the whole thing about the prison planet and the Thetans and all. When you got to that level and first heard about it, each of you, tell me how you didn't just go, okay, I'm out. I mean, seriously, that's hard for me to understand when you get how you reacted when both of you were told.
Yeah, it's pretty hard for me to understand that too. I would say, Mike, that by the time that I reached that point, I have been in Scientology for like 20 years. I had been indoctrinated.
And you didn't know what you didn't know about?
I had no idea. And there is a thing in Scientology that you saw throughout that film called an e-meter. And an e-meter is something that Scientology relies on enormously in order to persuade people that what they are being told is true is in fact true because it reads on the e-meter. Scientologists have a blind, absolute faith in the e-meter. And it's been twisted around, and a lot of people now believe that the e-meter can read your mind. In fact, even Hubbard says that the e-meter, if the e-meter has a read or a reaction, it just means the e-meter has a read or a reaction. It doesn't tell you what it is. But that's sort of one part of it, and like most of Scientology, there's a lot of other bits that go into this where it's not quite that simple. But believe me, when you get to that level in Scientology and you read those materials and then you're told go in session, you go in session and you watch the e-meter, and if the e-meter reacts, you believe that that is what is actually happening, and that story with the BTs and clusters and Xenu and 75 million years ago, it's reacting on the e-meter, it must be true, because the e-meter, in the mind of all Scientologists, registers but slightly below your awareness level. It's a tool that is used to be able to get you to discover and uncover things that you wouldn't be able to do by yourself, or if someone was just asking you a question. And it's considered to be a huge advance in being able to identify what the problem is that someone has. And believe me, there are a lot of people who would tell you it is very effective. It is very effective. I will tell you that on certain things in Scientology, it is very effective. It will get you to isolate and locate things that you didn't really think were there, and then suddenly, oh my God, I just realized I don't have that problem anymore. And that indoctrination keeps going and going and going, and when you get to the top levels, you are relying entirely on that e-meter. And you will hear Scientologists tell you, if you were to go and challenge them, they'd say, it reads on the meter.
Sarah, was your experience the same?
Well, when I first read it, I had to read it a few times because, like, what? You know, read it. But the thing is, I mean, I was raised a Catholic, so I'd also been believing that I ate the body and blood of Jesus every week, and that that Mary went up to heaven, body and soul, and there's a devil, and he has horns, and then every religion has those kinds of stories. So
This was a little far.
yeah, it was a little weird, but like Mike had said, you've been in for a long time by the time you get to that, so you've been used to, this is true, this works. And then the other thing is, when you do audit, whatever it is, you get relief, you feel better. So it just like, who cares what the story is? It's helping me feel better, and I feel good, and you feel euphoric, and so you just don't even put much attention on it.
Like Spanky said, when she heard she was going to be audited, she got excited.
Yeah, and it does. It has that effect on you. So that was more like what it was. To me, it wasn't it was a fun thing. It was kind of thrilling, exciting, but it was that wasn't the main reason I got into Scientology. I was more in it I was a child of the '60s, so I wanted to help people and do things to be a better person and change the world.
All right, if you all have questions, I know you have one over here.
Yeah, my name's Leah Remini. I live in Clearwater. Now, I have been for religious freedom for a long time. I know something about religious persecution, and that my grandfather, who I'm named for, was killed by the Nazis. My mother lived through Auschwitz. But I do also know that there's certain things that I'm going to tell you. I'll give you something free instead of a movie. On the internet, freedommag.org. freedommag.org. I talked to Mike Rinder's ex-wife and child tonight, who he left in June of 2007.
Please,
Left.
sit down.
Look, you got to hear about this.
No,
I
wait,
gave it to
wait.
you.
Let him talk first.
You don't have to listen. Okay,
Okay, I
left
get
in
to talk
June.
next then.
Sure, okay.
Okay,
but-
listen, let me finish.
Okay.
You want to do this piece, you might as well be
No, go ahead. Go
Good.
ahead.
So on June 10th, 2007, he leaves his wife, Kathy, and his daughter, Carol. Goes to Australia, he actually has been back to Australia where his family was, but he broke into his mother's house, stole from her. Under her deathbed, she was hoping that he would
Wait, no,
repent.
if you're trying to make a point, let's
The point
not-
is, a lot of this stuff is completely false. You can find out the truth if you're willing to listen to it. But these fabrications, these people are into the destruction of a church.
What
That's the simplicity of it. Go to freedommag.org.
Good point, leave now.
Make your point, they
Yeah,
don't
no,
want
I'm
to
not
hear
done.
you.
You made your point, leave
got
They
now.
don't want to hear
You made
you.
your point, leave now.
Please go.
I'm done with.
No,
I'm going to
go.
stay while I listen
You
to the
go.
rest.
Let him stay, but Lee, okay, thank you very much. He made a point. Let's go.
You
They're not
can
here
go on
to
the internet
listen.
and check it out.
Anybody that wants to hear him, please
Okay,
raise
all right,
your
he's gonna sit
hand.
down. He's gonna sit down now. All right.
Pardon me?
You should go on the internet and look.
No, I've been around a little bit.
But I recommend they go to Freedom Mag. They
Okay,
should
all right.
go.
Thank
They'll
you, Lee.
see how
Yes.
ridiculous
Over-
it is.
yeah, yes,
And
ma'am.
I have a lot of evidence too. Everything I have that I've said is documented. I have the documents in writing from the church where they said disconnect from your son from the International Justice Team. Petitions turned down. Don't tell me. They tore my family apart.
Okay, I said to you, ma'am.
Yeah,
Wait, wait.
I don't
Somebody else
know
wants
who
to
you
talk.
are, but I can tell you
Get
that
out
you
of
don't
here.
know who they are.
Oh, I know very
No,
well.
I
who
don't
they are.
want
Oh, I
to
do.
actually be in competition to say what I have to say. You need to be quiet.
Go ahead.
I'm a highly trained auditor. I spent 26 years serving you and other people who paid for services. I became an expert with that e-meter. And I can tell you that that church became a perverted joke of what it should be and what the tech has the ability to cause. And shame on you for standing up and spewing things to people who are championing the cause of the perverted joke that organization has become, and that comes from somebody who lived and breathed it. 80 to 100 hours a week.
Every religion has a
And so when I, after 26 years of seeing the church decline, have the opportunity to finally look at something myself, I stepped over that line and I said, I'm going to look. And I went to the Truth Rundown series, and with my expert training, knew that I would be able to look at those videos and tell whether or not those people were telling the truth. And do you know why I could do that? Because I made it my life to become that able to do that.
Well, there are thousands
And
of
when
other
I
people
watched
like
every
to
one
do
of
their
those
job
videos in that series, I saw one person after another telling the truth. And I've come to be very good friends with this gentleman and lady up here. And that's exactly what each of them are. And that's why they're there. They represent the struggle, the heartbreak, the competence and intelligence of the majority of the people who have left this organization with broken hearts and pools of tears. We're here. And we're not here because we don't have anything better to do. We're here because we're good people who got into that organization for all the right reasons. And we're standing up now and saying, enough, for all of the right reasons.
You know what? Half of Scientologists are apostates now. All of them are
They're under
leaving.
the radar. You don't even know the people that call me that are in Scientology and tell me what's going on.
Oh,
And they're
wake
afraid
up or
to
don't,
leave
man.
because they're afraid of losing their families. They're afraid of losing their jobs. There's a lot of them. There's hardly anyone.
He knows her better than
Yeah, my
anybody. Why don't you
deadbeat
answer?
husband who would not pay any child
Well,
support is here.
Yes, Nick Nelson's
My
fine.
deadbeat ex-husband, yes, Gail Lister.
You never paid
You never paid child support one dime. My daughter would not even let you watch her granddaughter.
never paid
And she said that
Remember
the church broke up our family.
You
She's
never
the one
paid
who broke
child
up our
support.
family.
Did you pay child support?
I broke it, I have it
pay
in
child
writing
support?
that I had to disconnect from my son, and they declared and expelled me, and my daughter quit talking to me. I sent her an email. She said, Mom, do not email me, do not call me, do not text me anymore until you do A to E.
Why did
You
you
disconnected
betray?
from me. You disconnected from your son via a text.
Okay, all right.
Before he was
Yeah, stop.
declared.
All right, it's getting too
You watch your daughter
real
on the
people up
video
here.
on Freedom Magazine.
No, there's real people.
Wait, okay, hang on.
Go to
Wait,
Freedom
I
Mag
don't want to get
and
into a
get the
streaming
She
match.
drove from Lakeland to hear
You
this.
pay child support. I'm
not talking about child
Did you
support.
ever pay child support?
Was
Were
he
you-
responsible?
It's a valid
Wait,
question.
guys.
I don't really
Whoa,
know.
whoa,
Is
whoa.
anybody?
Hey.
We're not talking about child support.
Why not? It's illegal not
People
to.
have questions.
It's
Can you
a
let the-
criminal offense not to
ma'am.
pay child support.
Well, maybe. Oh,
I moved
it's
to
Sheldon.
Clearwater in 1985, and when I was...
With a pioneer like you, why should she worry?
Why are you standing up?
I supported his child. I supported his child.
No, I'm looking
I
to
know
go to
it
the
is.
door.
Lee, we're trying to have a discussion here. Let this woman
I
talk.
just
If
wanted to
it's
make
the
a
truth,
comment.
Lee, you
I
ought to be
moved
able to shut up and
Clearwater
listen.
in 1985.
So
And
listen.
when I was coming
Sit down.
here,
Oh, listen.
a neighbor ran up to me just in tears and gave me 6 pictures, 6 photographs, and said, my sister moved to Clearwater and joined this organization, a church called Scientology, and we've never heard from her ever again. That all we know is she could never ever talk to her family. And I knew right away, I don't want anything to do with Scientology, because no religion would ever have you disconnect from your entire family like that. But I admire you both for coming forward. I'm sure your lives have been threatened. It's been a hard road. And I just think you're both so courageous, and thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Over here.
I'll be non-controversial.
Yay!
I'll just.
Say one thing.
That's okay.
Rinder. If you go check the records.
We don't really.
We don't
What
really.
about your
we
records?
don't wanna
The
hear
church,
what you have to
the
say.
church pays more,
The church pays more taxes than anybody else in the area. Check it.
Okay, what about you?
The more.
Do you think your own son's a
Yes, ma'am.
bad person? Yeah, like Nick's bad.
Yes, ma'am.
Best friends with Nick, your son.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll be non-controversial. Now, I'm born and raised in Clearwater. I'm right next door to the Church of Scientology in the Presbyterian Church, right next door. I used to go over there when I was young. My grandmother had a membership, everything. But I'm just curious, as a general question, you say you're not allowed to read the internet or see anything, but growing up here, I mean, we've known all along there's been articles in the paper. I mean, did you not ever read the paper or know
Never.
anything?
Not one.
You weren't allowed to read, if you saw anything negative on the, well, I could read the paper, but I didn't have a problem with the paper. In fact, the church tried to,
taking pictures of me?
the church tried to, is that Bates?
Yeah.
Is that the guy, Bates?
Private investigator?
Yeah.
Anyway, so, I'm sorry. This is what I do.
I mean, everyone that lives in Clearwater that's not a Scientologist knows about Thetans and Xenu, and everyone that's not Scientologist knows that, but
They don't, they get in trouble for reading them.
anything.
Because it'll show up on
really?
the meter if they read them.
Yeah,
Really?
they can't read any, I mean, I could read the paper if I was reading, what was happening at the beach or the weather, but I couldn't read anything bad about the
Anything.
church.
It just seems like it's common knowledge here for everyone that's not a Scientologist. You hear Thetans, you know Xenu, you know all that.
But if it was about Scientology, you would
You don't believe
tend
it,
to
you
stop
shut
reading
your
it.
mind off. You
You
don't
would
believe
tend to
it
stop
anyway.
reading it.
Because if you went on the meter, they would find out you read
They
it.
would find, okay, I was just curious how
Yeah,
you
we couldn't read it, they're not supposed to.
Honestly, there are probably people who are Scientologists that have read that stuff. And their reaction to it is, that's not the real thing.
Like this guy.
And they do not believe that that is what you get to when you get to OT3 if they're not there yet. Because internally within the church, they will tell you, oh no, that's all squirrel stuff. It's not the real thing. When you get there, you'll know. And when you get there, you do know. You know that it was the real thing, but now you're there, and now as Paul said, or Jason said, oh yeah, but you paid for your next thing. So I'll get through this one, and then we'll move on to the next. And that's what happens. Those people that are, parading up, well, there's less of them now since the new building was built, but the people that are on the streets in Clearwater or jumping on the buses, the vast majority of those people have no clue about Xenu and the Galactic Confederacy and et cetera, et cetera. The vast majority of those people, believe it or not, 8 years later, do not even know that I have left Scientology. Wow. And I was a very, very prominent figure in Scientology.
You were.
And they don't know. They don't know who I am. They don't know where I am. If they knew me before, they think that I'm off doing some special thing with all the other people that have disappeared. The Heber Gentures and company who have just vanished from the Scientology world. They don't know that. They literally live in a bubble. They live in a bubble that is a world created by Scientology about Scientology. And as I was saying, there is the us and them. And every organization or every group or every religious activity has that to some extent. There's got to be a devil and a good. There has to be something that you're fighting against to keep everybody kind of motivated and going. And Scientology has, I said in the film, Scientology has refined the art and the techniques of control to a really, really quite brilliant extent. And those people, if you walked up to them and said, well, do you know that David Miscavige does this, or do you know this, or they would look at you and they would go, like these two, they would say, not those two, the two that were there before, they would say, it's lies, it's all lies, you're just lying, you're just making it up.
But they never read the internet, they never read anything. I mean, I'm surprised they even let them watch this film.
Yeah, really.
They came in at the end.
Laura,
Oh, they
you had a
did?
question?
I was just curious, not the us, but the remainder of the people in Scientology.
Yeah.
Okay, are they not interacting in the rest of, or are they holding jobs in Clearwater, all throughout Clearwater? Or are they
Yes,
simply,
but-
it seems like a little bubble.
It is a little bubble, and there are people that hold jobs, and there are people that hold normal jobs. There are also, Scientologists tend to cluster together. They tend to have, there are a few Scientologists that have businesses in Clearwater, and almost all their employees are Scientologists. There's some Scientology schools, and all the people there are Scientologists. And this is another part of the disconnection conundrum for people, in that if they become persona non grata with Scientology and are told that everybody is told they have to disconnect, that can also mean they lose their job.
Yeah.
They are told by their boss, or their boss is told, you can no longer talk to that person. Well, now what do? So they fire them on some excuse, some other reason, because it would be religious discrimination to fire them because they're a Scientologist and their church has told them that they're not allowed to talk to them. But there are a lot of people around here. There's people in, and like Rick Ogle up there, who was a very prominent Scientology chiropractor, who was declared and told, and all of his clients went.
Yeah.
They're just all gone. That no one will talk to him anymore. Now his business is done. His partner won't pay his bills. You know, it's like, it's crazy. This is what.
What did he say? What?
Did you have a question up there, Rick?
Yeah, I do. Mike, I'd like your opinion. As you know, like in the early 2000s, all the parking lots belonging to Scientology were completely full. It's the international headquarters for doing the upper levels, et cetera, and the Sandcastle parking lots and all the streets around there were full. I'm talking up through about 2006. Right. You drive by there now, and even their own parking lots are far from full, and all the little streets around where people used to park because it was overloaded, they're often empty, whether they're on course in the morning or they're on course all day or on course on evening. It is a far cry from what it was. Now my question to you is, being that you were in for most of your life, being that you live in Pinellas County, what do you foresee in terms of the implosion of Scientology, let's say, over the next 5-10 years? If there were maybe 100,000 worldwide and it's now down to, you said 50, or somebody said 50, I don't think it's that high. I think it's probably somewhere between 15 and 20,000 people. What do you predict over the next 5 to 10 years?
I predict that the decline will continue at the rate that it has been going over the last 10 years. And I would say that that's like a half-life of 10 years. Like whatever it is now, it will be half in, actually probably the half-life is probably 5 years at this point. Whatever its level is now, it will be half of that in 5 years. The problem in Scientology now is that, just as Lee Meekum said, go look at the internet. And people now do go look at the internet. Yeah. And you cannot now convince someone by selling them a Dianetics book on the street and body routing them in to do a test and putting them on intro service that they have found nirvana, because they're going to go home and look on the internet and Google Dianetics and Scientology, and they're going to see a lot of stuff. Yeah. And as I think it was Tony Ortega that said in there, well, you know, if people got told about the OT3 story right at the outset, I don't think there'd be a lot of people that would stay in. And that's what happens now. So that progression, in order to have the people at the top that give 25 million or 250,000 or whatever, you have to have new people coming in at the bottom, and they are not.
No.
And so that decline is going to continue, and it's very evident. You see the reports all over the place. These buildings that get bought all over the world, they're empty. They're literally empty. You have to walk around and shout in the hallways to find anybody to come and say, "Hi, I'm here. Can you do something for me?" So I think that is the future outlook for Scientology. I also think that ultimately enough people are going to stand up and enough people are going to create noise that some politician, some elected official, some IRS official is eventually going to decide, you know what, there's something really wrong here, and we need to revisit this. And it's going to take a brave person to do it, because it will be a career move, and bureaucrats don't, and politicians don't tend to like to make career moves. They want to do the thing that's the safe way out. But there are people around who do that sort of stuff, who take on a cause and decide that something needs to be done about this because it just stinks. And it really does stink. And the more media exposure there is of it, the more it becomes acceptable for people to talk about it. The more people there are who are no longer in fear about saying anything because they worry about the retaliation of the church. The church can't retaliate anymore. They're a toothless tiger. They cannot deal with the number of people who stand up and speak out now. They took their best shot at Marty. They took their best shot at me. They failed. They didn't accomplish shutting it down. In fact, it's just gotten more, and the actions that they are taking to try and squelch people are causing more people to stand up and say, you know what, this is bullshit. And you get idiots like Lee Meekum, who stands up here and thinks that he is actually accomplishing something, and all he's doing is getting everybody here more riled up to go out and do something when they walk outside the door. Right. And this is Scientology foot bullet 101. This is what they do. Their statements to the press, their handlings of situations like this, everything they do gets more and more people angry and upset and motivated to do something. And the more people there are that do it, it's going to end. And I'm not trying to end Scientology. The people have a right to believe anything they wish. You don't have to try and rationalize religious belief. You don't have to try and say that belief in Xenu is any crazier than belief in the Virgin Mary or the Mormon, train to the planet where only the 400 people are going to be stuck on it at the end of Armageddon. Nothing is wrong with having weird beliefs. What is wrong is weird actions based on those beliefs. Things that you do that hurt people because you believe that you're the only one that knows what's good for everybody. And that, by definition, is fundamentalist religious fanaticism. And it happens with Muslims, it happens with Jews, it happens with Christians, it happens with Scientologists. I was one. And I was a fool. The problem with Scientology at this juncture is that it is institutionalized. They're like the Westboro Baptist Church, they're institutionalized. They will stand behind their insanity and have people out on the street protesting soldiers' deaths and that sort of crazy, crazy stuff. But generally, religious fanaticism is confined to small pockets of religious belief, and people act out of their twisted, perverted version. The problem with Scientology is a lot of the abuse and the twisted, perverted activities that hurt people is institutionalized. It is actually caused by the church. The breaking up of Sarah's family is not because a crazy Scientologist like that guy who was standing over there did it. It's because the Church of Scientology did it.
Yep.
That's their policy to do that. That's what's wrong, and that's what needs to be ended. We can never put an end to lunatics like him who wish to tell everybody else that they're wrong and they don't know what they're talking about. But you can put an end to institutionalized abuses.
Because then he'll shut up once they change.
Folks, we have time for, yeah, Susan.
Question. All of you people who have been in Scientology sound very intelligent to me.
We are. Prosperous.
I agree, and very sane and rational. And I'm wondering if you can distinguish for us, what were the traits when you were inducted into Scientology, that you look back and you think,
They were sane and rational.
No, you mean what was I thinking?
I mean, was there a
Can
part
I
of
say
your
mine?
character that made you susceptible
Oh.
to that indoctrination?
Well, like I said, I was a child of the 60s, and there was a lot of people like me, and I really wanted to change the world. I was looking for answers. I wasn't finding them. I always felt there was something more that was missing, and I was looking for that. And Scientology offered something new and different. And it said a world without insanity, without war, where the able can prosper and people have rights. And I thought, wow, that's beautiful. That's what I want, you know? And then it says, and here's a way to help yourself become more able, you know, be a better person, and then you can help other people be a better person. Here's the tools. And it was, and I went to school, I went to college, I was going to change the criminal justice system. I worked in the justice system. I actually did quite a bit of stuff, you know, to help reform and to improve the conditions. But I didn't really, I didn't feel like I was ever going to be able to do it. So Scientology was that answer. So that was for me, and that was back in the 70s. Nowadays, I don't know what gets people in, but it wasn't Xenu, it wasn't any of that stuff that did it. That was just.
Sir, you
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I mean, at given points in life, you know, like in my case, you know, like I was looking for something that could assist me and my family and so on, because I mean, I'm a Cuban immigrant, and so I, you know, with all the family getting it out of Cuba, you know, with all this things, you know, and sick and this and that and the other, so I had to fight through all that, and I mean, I sort of like got to a point where I was weakened, and so I just wanted to like find some support, something that would give me strength, and so I ended up in their hands.
Mike, you said, when I did the interview with Mike earlier today for the story I'm working on, you said something to me about that I thought was important, because people have a misconception that the folks in Clearwater that are running around doing that, you said are basically good people. Can you expound, the young people that are on the streets?
Well, the young people, the old people, I mean, people that come into Scientology generally come in because, A, they either want to help themselves or they want to help other people. They want to know how to solve problems. They want to know how to live a better life. They want to know how to be happier. They are looking for something, and they feel when they find something that helps them that they want others to share that.
Sorry.
And the work that they do and the work that people in Scientology do, and their, you know, 18-hour days, 7 days a week for $50 a week, is not done because they have chains around their arms and legs. It's done because they believe that they are doing something good to help other people. Not even so much help themselves. All those people that you see in Clearwater, all those Sea Org members, they're not there because they think they're helping themselves. They're there because they think they're helping everybody else. They sincerely believe it. They are very, very sincere in their belief that they are actually helping people. And as misguided as it may be, and from the outside world perspective, that bubble is a very, very self-contained, crazy bubble of, you know, think and ideas that just don't make any sense at all. To them, the world of Scientology is what makes sense, and the world outside does not. And we have to do something to save that world outside. So they're not inherently cruel or nasty or bad or evil. Not in the slightest. And for the vast majority of them, they haven't got a clue what is really going on.
But it's at the top.
It's
Yeah.
at the top.
Yeah, they're very good people. I mean, I found Scientologists to be very
How do
good.
people live on $50 a week?
They have they
room and
live
board.
in
Oh,
communal
okay.
living, they get fed, they get clothed,
That's it. Is
That's
all
it.
downtown Clearwater Scientology, like all the restaurants? I mean, there's a few restaurants and
oh, I
stores.
don't know, I don't go down there much.
A lot of them went out of business.
They're not all Scientology.
Everybody leaves when I go. If I go to downtown Starbucks, everybody leaves.
We gotta wrap up because we can't stay in the theater forever. We can go on forever. Let's do one more question if anybody has one. Anybody?
I was going to just add something in line with what Rick was asking on the future and so on. Each one of us probably know at least 10 people that are not here, that don't dare come here and show their faces because they're like what we call under the radar. Like, I mean, they're not in agreement with what's going on, but yet they don't speak. And they're not active or in agreement or happy with what's going on. They know and have but they're afraid of this reactions towards families and friends and you know, pulling their friendship from them. So they stay undercover. I know in Spain, in Puerto Rico, I know in Florida or here in Miami and elsewhere in LA, friends that are undercover. And so if we take per each one of us, at least I can name 10. So multiply that times whatever. So how many are supposedly it's still on the lines of the church that are not really on the lines?
Ma'am, back there, that'll be the final question.
Yep, and Mike, I just wanted to say, with such an eye-opening documentary, and at the same time having a wonderful celebrity, Leah Remini, coming out with her book that just came out, is that, do you guys have a good relationship? Have you read the book? And I think what a great thing to coincide together to really open more people's eyes.
I have a wonderful relationship with Leah. I have known her for a very, very long time. The title of her book is very apt, Troublemaker. And this book is going to be a lot of trouble for some people, most particularly Tom Cruise, David Miscavige, Tommy Davis. Those guys are going to hate this book. And I think that it will be a whole new wave that is going to now come on top of this film. And they sort of have a synergy that goes together with them because this film clearly makes the point about the responsibility of those celebrity megaphones, as they call them, for telling people how wonderful Scientology is and that they have a responsibility to do something also about ending the abuses of Scientology. This book is going to play into that again. It's going to be something that is going to, I mean, Leah has a long and interesting career in Hollywood. She's been in a lot of things. She's very, very funny. She is a very funny writer, in addition to a funny person when you see her on TV. But I would kind of guess that the focus of the entire media nuclear explosion that is going to happen is not going to be her acting in King of Queens with Kevin James. It is going to be the relationship and interaction between her and Tom Cruise and her and David Miscavige and her and Tommy Davis.
Sarah, you want to have the final word? Ladies last. Go ahead. You want to have the final word?
Well, you know, I mean, I'm so happy that this film came out and that it's reached so many people. And my whole purpose in doing this was twofold. One was to kind of warn other people, you know, buyer beware of what you're getting into. You could risk losing your children, your family. You know, you should warn others. And it's not that there's not good stuff in there, but there's people like this lady friend of mine over here who audits in the field, who does apply Scientology in a way that doesn't try to control you and manipulate you. So there are people who do want Scientology. They need to know that there are places that they can go to get it, and that it can be very helpful for them. And the other thing is that Scientology tries to tell people is that your life will be ruined, you'll lose your eternity, you're going to die, horrible things are going to happen to you if you leave. That's what they tell people, and people are afraid. They actually are afraid of that. Well, I'm also one to tell people other than the heartbreak of losing my daughter and granddaughter, I have to, just accept that as a new normal, but still hold out hope that will change. But other than that, I have, a wonderful husband. We just bought a new house. We do well financially. Life is good. I'm very happy. I'm on a whole new spiritual path. And I'm so relieved I'm out of the church and I woke up. So, and that can be that way for others.
Folks, thanks for coming. And thank you all.
Thank you.